Happy Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 185. Actually, it's 186. I apologize, Nick. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with Pucks and Pitchforks blog and editor-in-chief, Nick Villano, coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios in the bunker in North Jersey and in the bunker in South Jersey. Soon to be joining up on November 12th at American Whiskey. Yeah. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network. Are you happy, Nick? You seem happy.
Am I happy?
Yeah, you should be happy. You should be ecstatic right
now. My hockey team is good for the first time since I've written at Pucks and Pitchforks. That's not true. I wrote about them in 2018, but come on. It's been a long, drawn-out process of garbage time and just, how many games, Sam? How many games have, let's just do this podcast. This is what? Is this season 3 of us together? No, it's season 4, right?
I think it's 4, actually.
Okay, so this is season 4 of us together.
Season 3 is when you first started.
Yeah, because there's that one. I get all thrown off because there's that one pandemic-shortened season. Have there been 200 useless games that we've had to talk about in those 4 seasons?
Yeah.
200 garbage games. Nothing. We got nothing. There's no reason to talk about hockey, but we're going to talk about hockey because we love hockey. There was 200 games that I watched that had no bearings on the standings, no bearings on the future of the franchise, no bearings on their ability to win or lose. No, it didn't matter what happened in the long run because the game, it was over. And now we just won 7 in a row. The team has 10 wins in 13 games to start the season after losing the first 2. They've won in every possible way. They have outspeeded their opponent. They have out-muscled their opponent. They have won on days where they didn't have their best. They have won on days where they got outshot. Then they got dominated on Tuesday, and they won. Nico Hischier is playing at an MVP level. MVP. Not Selke, because it's nice to talk about two-way players that should win the Selke. Not
Lady Bing.
Not team MVP. No, he's playing as one of the best players in the league. Now, you got to give Jesper Bratt credit for that as well, because Jesper Bratt is out of his mind offensively, and he's really the reason that Hischier is able to break out offensively. But, they've resurrected the career of Tomas Tatar. That line is on fire, Sam.
Yeah, on fire. And the whole team is pulling together as one. When one line is slumping or one player is slumping, the other player has their back. That's what I'm noticing.
Well, who is even slumping right now?
Alexander Holtz? No, I'm just kidding. That's true. I mean,
I guess you could say Hall's slumping because he hasn't scored yet.
Well, sometimes
he's doing so many other things.
Maybe I used the wrong choice of words. When the player makes a mistake out on the ice, because it's bound to happen. No one's perfect. Nobody's perfect. Yeah. Look, the fact that Ryan Graves has scored against the Blue Jackets, the BJs, it's like every other game he's scoring big goals in the past week. Defensively, they're getting involved. They're taking good risks. Somebody's backing. If a defenseman pinches in, there's a forward that slides back, making sure that that point is covered. That's what I'm seeing.
And the difference this year, and I've really noticed this, is that so you got three defensive lines. Only one at a time ever has a bad night. Like John Marino and Ryan Graves were bad last night. Like straight up, they had a bad game. But that was probably their only bad game of the season. We've seen Brendan Smith and Damon Severson have bad games, but you never see them have bad games at the same time that Siegenthaler and Hamilton have bad games. Hamilton and Siegenthaler have maybe 2 bad games this season. Maybe. I know of one off the top of my head. I'd have to go back to that Detroit and Philly game at the start of the season to see which defensive pairs had kind of rough games. Maybe that was the game. I'm talking about the since then. I think Dougie and Siegenthaler have had 1 or 2 bad games. Severson and Smith kind of go back and forth. Maybe like 4 bad games, but they've never had bad games at the same time that Hamilton and Siegenthaler had bad games. And Marino and Graves, I think, just had their first bad game last night. And Severson and Smith had a fine game, and Hamilton and Siegenthaler had a phenomenal game. So I think that's the difference here, Sam, is that players are picking each other up. You know, we see it with, like right now, if you want to talk about any kind of slump, the third line is, I wouldn't say slumping, but they're not having the impact of the other line. Dawson Mercer, Eric Holla, and Jesper Boquist, they're just not having the same impact as the other lines. And they're not getting as much time, which is kind of sad because you're kind of taking Mercer out of the lineup a little bit. But the other line, the Nico Bratt Tatar line is playing so well that it's picking everybody else up. The fourth line, the BMW line, is playing so well and completely and utterly obliterating expectations. That's why Jeremy Goldstein wrote a story on the fourth line yesterday that you can catch on pucksandpitchforks.com right now. So players are coming to play. They're hitting it. They're hitting the ground running. And you know, we have our guest on, Adam Vignan. Vingan. Right?
Vingan.
Did I say it?
Yeah, think of like vehicle identification number. Vin.
Okay, Vingan.
Adam Vingan.
Adam Vingan. He's written everywhere. The Athletic, the Tennessean. But he just wrote a piece about the Devils on Sportsnet that I wanted to talk to him about. And here's the thing: is that people are talking about the Devils, Sam, and we don't even have to get into Jack Hughes. Like, that was it. Last year, if you were talking about the Devils, you're talking about Jack Hughes or maybe the surprise season of Jesper Bratt, or you were just talking about how terrible the goalie situation is. Those were the 3 things national pundits were talking about. None of those 3 – well, Bratt is still relevant, but he's not the talk of the town. And people are still all talking about the Devils right now because they're the most exciting team in the league. You know, maybe give or take like Vegas and Vegas.
Well,
but they are one of the most exciting teams in the league to watch. And everybody wants to write about them.
Yeah.
They are the story. And Jack Hughes has not broken out this season. That being said, y'all are crazy for talking about Jack Hughes is having a rough start. Jack Hughes is a point per game. He's on pace for 82. Hasn't missed a game yet. Has played well. I get it that his game against he's not built for games against Calgary. Okay. The Devils can win when he has an off night. If we play Calgary or like let's say they played New York in the playoffs, the New York Islanders, and he gets pushed around a little bit, I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem. Calgary is a unicorn when it talks about Jack Hughes and being able to stifle him because they have that Daryl Sutter system that nobody else has. They play a rough-nosed style hockey that just people don't have the personnel to do that anymore. And I'm not at all worried about Jack Hughes. He was having trouble staying on his skates last night. It could be a million reasons. Maybe he partied too hard the night before. I don't know that. I have no information. I'm just throwing anything out. Maybe he has a cold. Maybe, maybe he twisted his ankle playing soccer in the pregame. Who knows? It's clear that he has nothing seriously wrong with him. He just had a rough game, and he had trouble staying on his skates. But he's still making such an incredible impact. I wrote about this a couple days ago about the 5 players that are the reason why the Devils are in first place, and Jack Hughes is still number 5. Even with his struggles, He's still number 5. He's the 5th most important player in this team's progression and the reason why they are where they are. And spoiler alert, I did put Nico Hischier number 1 there. Nico Hischier has been phenomenal this season, and he's the team's best player right now. Sam, you're back.
I'm back. I hope I don't screw this up because I spent 90 minutes putting the phone systems together today, Nick.
I think you got to call somebody on this, Sam. These phone systems are ruining your life.
Oh, I know. It's all these live events, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, enough of my problems. His name is Adam Vingan, journalist at Sportsnet. You can find him on Twitter at Adam Vingan. Adam, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great, Adam. So great to have you on. Excited to talk to you. You wrote about the Devils this week, and you seem to be following the trend of a lot of national reporters and journalists writing about the Devils, and for good reason. They're on top of the Metropolitan Division. They're one of the surprises of the season, and they just beat the Calgary Flames again, to make it 7 in a row last night. So let me ask you this, Adam. Are you considering this Devils team a contender to win the Metropolitan Division? Do you think that's a realistic goal?
Yeah, I really do. And I know that it's early and there are plenty of examples of teams who get off to great starts, who end up not making the playoffs or not doing much in the playoffs if they get there. For example, I think about the Buffalo Sabres quite a bit, who have a recent history of at least of starting off really well and in trying to convince people that they're back, quote unquote, and then they fall apart. And I think you're actually kind of seeing that now, with the Sabres a little bit. After they started off well, and then they're on I believe a 3-game losing streak as they prepare to host Jack Eichel in the Golden Knights, who have won 8 in a row. Tomorrow, but as it relates to the Devils, I mentioned this in the story that you're referencing. We as hockey consumers have been waiting for this breakout for the Devils for years, and it hasn't happened. And I think you're finally seeing things sort of all come together at the same time. And when you look at the Devils, when you look at their process, the things that they do well, with the exception of goaltending, which I know we'll get to in a little bit, they pretty much do everything you want them to do well. And that's the thing that's most impressive about how they've been playing, is that you look at their underlying numbers and there are no really red flags. There aren't things that you look at that say, well, that's clearly going to regress, and that's why I do think the Devils, are a legitimate team. I don't think they are, I don't think this is smoke and mirrors, so to speak. I really do think that the Devils, have finally figured things out, which is crazy to think, considering, what was happening in Newark a month ago. After they dropped their second consecutive game to open the season. It appeared that things were just going to keep going the way they had been going. A lot of promise that wasn't fulfilled, but I think I have a lot of confidence in their ability to continue to remain at or near the top of their division.
So I'm going to skip ahead since you mentioned the goalies and kind of just the situation, and I think fans are a little bit on edge when it comes to goaltending, especially after what happened last year, playing 7 goalies, one of them being John Gillies, another being Andrew Hammond, who, hasn't been relevant in quite a while. So quickly they lose Mackenzie Blackwood 3 to 6 weeks. Now you're leaning on Vitek Vanacek. Do you think that, you said in your article, they need league average goaltending. Do they have that right now, and can they sustain that for the season?
I think they do. I mean, I think even with Mackenzie Blackwood on the shelf for for the next several weeks, I do think that, Vitek Vanacek is fully capable of being a league average goalie. And what's always interesting when teams are in the market for goalies, especially a team like the Devils, who, as you just said, have struggled to find consistency in net for the last several years. You kind of chuckle when you think to yourself, well, what's the way they can improve their goaltending? Well, let's go acquire the second best goalie on the team with bad goaltending, which is what the Capitals had last year. Bad might be strong, but it was definitely below average with Samsonov and Vanacek. And I think Samsonov was the better of the two. So, there was certainly some skepticism, I'm sure, of how good Vanacek could be, and if you consider that he was if he was going to be in a rotation with Blackwood, that would probably work out pretty well. But I think that with Vanacek probably slated to carry the load, I think he can play well enough, I think, to keep things afloat. And you would know this better than I would. I think the fact that Jonathan Bernier appears, maybe close to returning in the not so distant future, certainly will help. I know Bernier hasn't played in a long time, but Bernier is a good veteran goaltender, who has won, in the league, in various places. So depending on what happens there, I don't know. You would have to tell me if Bernier is expected to return before Blackwood does. But if Blackwood has to take that entire 6-week period to recover from his sprained MCL, and Bernier is able to come back in that time and help Vanacek, I think that would definitely help the Devils. But if Vanacek is going to be a starter for the next several weeks, I think he's good enough to not, like I said, he's good enough to give you league average. I think he can be even slightly better than that, but I don't expect their goaltending to get significantly worse while Blackwood is out.
And just an update on Bernier. He revealed yesterday that he aggravated his injury in training camp, but he's still been practicing. The original timeline that we heard a couple weeks ago was Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving. Maybe it's a couple weeks after that, but then you're looking at, kind of a similar timeline as Blackwood. I wrote about this the other day that I think they're going to just hold out Blackwood until Christmas, and I think the return of Bernier is going to help that. So that's kind of the update on that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's totally reasonable. I think that Bernier, when he signed with the Devils, if I'm not mistaken, he was a pretty hot commodity. As a free agent goalie, who could be a really good backup for a team. So, I think having him back in the fold would definitely help.
Yeah, I mean, Carolina traded for his rights. We forget that. Carolina traded Nedeljkovic for the rights to Bernier, and
That's right.
And Bernier left. He's like, I'm good. Appreciate it, but I'm still going to go sign with the Devils. So that, he definitely was a hot commodity. He was a good goalie. He was the guy who was supposed to come in and solidify our issues. And, well, for some reason, there's a black cloud over the goaltenders room in New Jersey. I do want to kind of jump to, because there's just a lot in your article that I wanted to kind of unwrap. And you were using a lot of stats. You used some counting stats, some advanced stats, and there's so many to choose from right now in hockey, and the Devils are really good at a lot of them. What was one stat that really jumped out to you?
Yeah, I think one thing that's really interesting is that, the Devils, as you clearly know, are a really good team off the rush in terms of generating scoring chances off the rush offensively. And one would think that, a team that plays that up and down style would be, giving up just as many scoring chances off the rush as they're getting. The Devils are actually the best team in the league, at least they were when I did the article, at preventing rush chances. So they're not playing fire wagon hockey out there where they're trading chances with teams and playing bad defense. They're actually playing excellent defense off the rush, which is where that team speed comes in handy. I think of, from an offensive standpoint, I think about the the goal that Jesper Bratt scored in Edmonton, the second goal of the 2 goals in 7 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you give the Devils even a sliver of space, they're going to make you pay. And I think you saw that because that was just off of a center ice draw, and they made a great play off the faceoff. But the fact that they're able to get out on the rush and create as much as they are that way, but they're also preventing teams from doing that. They have at least, like I said, as of Tuesday, before their game against Calgary, they had the best defensive zone denial rate in the league. So even if teams were able to gain the blue line into the Devils' defensive zone, they weren't really able to do anything after that. In that case, it's not just crossing the blue line; it's making a successful play into the attacking zone. So if the Devils are allowing teams into their defensive zone, those teams aren't getting scoring chances or anything like that. A lot of plays are dying at the blue line for opposing teams. So I think that the Devils' speed is not just a factor offensively; it's just as much of a factor defensively. So when I saw that they were the best team in the league at preventing rush chances, that kind of surprised me, because I would assume that a team that plays up and down like the Devils can might be a little bit more porous defensively, but that's not happening. And I think that's a testament to their team speed and defense.
Yeah, I agree. I agree on a lot of those points. One of the really, just kind of hit that style hard is, the Devils didn't play well yesterday. They still got those chances. You saw that Nico Hischier's game-winning goal where he just got some space, he took a shot, and he just rifled it past Markstrom. But despite the fact that the Devils basically just got hemmed in for most of the game, they only lost the high danger chances 7-6 at even strength. So even in a game where they get hemmed in, they make sure all the chances against them are low danger against their goalie, which is right now Vanacek. So that's something that really stood out to me as far as like the stats go, that even in those bad games, they're still avoiding those terrible chances, which is something that didn't happen last year.
Yeah, they're when you look at their expected goal percentage, the only team I think the only team in the league as of the other day that had a better expected goal percentage at even strength was Florida. And it just goes to show you, and I think I mentioned this off the top, that their actual goal percentage at even strength is not far off from their expected goal percentage. So it's not like they're riding a incredibly high shooting percentage or something like that. Like, they're basically in line with what their expected goals and their actual goals are pretty close to each other, which is what you want as a team. It shows you that the process is sound, that the way they're playing is sustainable, and not, they don't appear to be a regression candidate. You're not looking for, there aren't, like I said before, there aren't those red flags that say if this falls off, they're in huge trouble. I mean, the fact that they're we talked about the goaltending, excuse me, they're in the bottom, their team save percentage is in the bottom third of the league, and they're still as good as they are, which is why I argued that if they just get league average goaltending, they'll be in excellent shape. This is not a team that needs their goalie to, you look at Philadelphia, for example. I think Philadelphia is the team that I feel like is the proverbial house of cards. If Carter Hart doesn't play the way he's been playing to start the season, the Flyers their record would be awful. And that as soon as Carter Hart comes back down to earth a little bit, the Flyers are more or less screwed. I don't see that with New Jersey. Like, they're doing the fact that they're 10-3 with the goaltending they have shows you that, they're in a good position for sure.
So we mentioned Jesper Bratt earlier. I want to talk about him again because he looks like a man possessed early on in the season. What is this player's ceiling? Is he 100-point player? Is that in the realm of possibility?
Yeah, that's a good question. He wouldn't be if I were thinking about 100-point players on the Devils, I would think most people who watch the Devils would say Jack Hughes, but I think Jesper Bratt has had a really good start to the season. Obviously, with the point streak to start the season, setting the franchise record there. But yeah, his underlying numbers are especially good in terms of his ability to move the puck and his playmaking, particularly his passing. He's an upper echelon player this year in those particular metrics when it comes to moving the puck up ice and finding his teammates and good scoring areas. So, I think that, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, where the Devils are, a team that we've been waiting to bust out for years. And you have all these really great young players, Heischer and Hughes and Bratt particularly, but there are others as well. And, I remember when, the Devils, this would have been 2019, when they traded for PK Subban and they signed Wayne Simmons, and you're like, well, this team's going for it. They need those veteran players to surround those up and comers, and it just did not work, as you obviously know. So, I think that, it's just a really good mix. It's just, the young players, the veterans, it's just a really good mix of players there. I know that, I think even with the loss of Andre Palat, which will certainly sting, but I think the Devils are wholly capable of filling that void, versus other teams who might lose a similar player. Like, think about, for example, the Oilers losing Evander Kane now for the next 3 to 4 months. Now, of course, they have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, but if you're looking for, a depth player to step up and attempt to replace Kane, there aren't too many options, that you can feel good about. I feel like the Devils have, the goods to, to replace a player like Palat, which just shows you the depth that they have on the team.
Yeah, and that comes with being bad for so long, because you get to get these, pick higher in not only the first round, but they got Fabian Zetterlund in the third round higher. They got they got Nathan Bastian higher. There's a lot of contributors who aren't first round picks here, and those years of being bad are, I guess, finally paying off, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, there are teams in the NHL that don't understand that sometimes you have to get worse in order to get better. And look, those years that are bad, they're bad. The Devils have not played much meaningful hockey in the last couple of years, but they drafted well, and you're seeing the fruits of that patience, bear out at this particular moment. And look, it doesn't always work out that way. Teams sometimes get caught in these perpetual rebuilding cycles, and they're never able to dig themselves out of it. I mentioned Buffalo earlier. Buffalo has started and stopped multiple different rebuilds over the past decade and haven't made the playoffs. And I think the Devils, excuse me, look, how many points did they miss the playoffs by? Like 35, 36 last year. And I feel like they were out of it. They were out of it, significantly. It's been a minute since they've played meaningful hockey games. You might have to go back to, the Taylor Hall MVP year, since they played late season meaningful games, unless I'm mistaken. Of course, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But
that's right. Not a meaningful game in the bunch.
Yeah, so it's been 4 years since they played, meaningful games, and I think, the fact that they're in this position right now, it's like, look, even if they stumble, which, every team does, they've built themselves enough of a cushion that they can withstand, if they go on a 3-game losing streak at some point, and they'll be okay. Sometimes teams, there are teams that have those streaks that, those could be, detrimental to their playoff chances. I think if the Devils continue to rack up points close to the rate they've been doing so far, they can withstand a skid. So yeah, I mean, I think Devils fans have a lot to be excited about. I think they're they're in a good spot, and they're a fun team to watch. I'm trying to think it to myself, like, when's the last time I actively sought out watching a Devils game? Like, do I have to go back to like 2001, 2002? I don't know. Probably not. It was when they went to the Stanley Cup final, of course, against the Kings.
Yeah.
But it's thinking of, the glory days have long been gone, but it feels like they're at least on the upswing now.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam Vingan, writer at Sportsnet, freelancing all over. Let everybody who's listening know where they can find your work. Plug the article on Sportsnet. Let everybody know how they can find you. Just talk yourself up a little bit, Adam.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm freelancing for Sportsnet, so you can find my work on sportsnet.ca. The story about the Devils published Tuesday morning, so it may not be on the front page at the moment, but you can certainly find it by searching the New Jersey Devils on the website or clicking on their team page. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Vingan, Vingan. I'd also like to commend you on pronouncing my last name correctly, which doesn't always happen. So very impressive. And yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, and I hope Devils fans are enjoying this season. I'm sure they are, and it looks like it will continue to be a fun ride for the rest of the year.
Adam, I'll tell you a little trick that I learned. I worked for ABC for a long time, so I've had to write about a lot of names. So I looked up a video of you saying your own name, so I would make sure that I said your name right. So to make life easier on everybody, I, from the Pucks and Pitchforks Twitter account, just retweeted your article. So go to the Pucks and Pitchforks Twitter account, go to the Adam Vingan Twitter account. You'll find the article either way there. David Putty is screaming in your tweet. So very easy to find. It's not hard. But Adam, thanks so much for coming on. We'll definitely have you on again soon.
All right, guys. Thanks so much.
That is Adam Vingan, journalist at Sportsnet, taking the time out, talking to us about Devils hockey. Nick, he complimented us. Both Devils, we pronounced his name right. This is a podcast that mutilates everybody's names, including our own players, including ourselves.
We mutilate players' names. We try really hard not to mutilate guest names.
Yeah, we try.
I'm still not sure what Andreas' last name is. I'm not going to lie to you. I've heard both sides of the coin very confident it's one way or the other.
I have conspiracy theories. And you want to hear them?
I don't know.
names?
Election night was last night. Do I want to hear conspiracies?
No. I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about names. Because you talked about the trick. You watch a video. He said Adam Vingan, right? Mm. But if you go back to the draft, Simon or Simone, I looked at the video. He says Simon. But then the Devils changed it to Simone. So which is it? And then Kate Madigan called him Simon. Which is it?
So here's the thing. We learned a pretty valuable saga with Tyrod Taylor, former Buffalo Bills quarterback, got stabbed by the Chargers doctor. For his entire career, he was Tyrod Taylor. And then on his fourth team, he was just like, actually, it's Tyrod. And everyone's like, what? He's like, yeah, it's Tyrod. Wow. So I feel like these athletes legitimately either don't pay attention or don't care what you call them until, like, they're in a bad mood or they're just sick of hearing the wrong name or, you know. But I'm all for, if it's out there and you could find it, you know, what I don't get, now that I'm thinking about this, Sam, Tyrod Taylor at some point had to have played on like Sunday Night Football or something, right? What's the one where they say their own name? Like Tyrod Taylor, Purdue. I don't think he went to Purdue, but like that's Sunday Night Football.
Yeah. Is it? Yeah, I think it's. That's a good question. No, yeah, I think it's NBC, right? The NBC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know why we started making it a point about names, though, right? Do you remember what we did? What I did?
No.
We had Michael Vukovic on the show.
Yes.
And I called him Vukojevic the entire interview. And he did not correct me. And then the next week we had Rob Lapolis on, and he said, Miggins Vukovic. I was like, would never guessed that in a million years, but I guess I should have asked him, huh? Because that was a wild interview. Because that was an interview that Vinny set up for us.
Vinny Parisi.
So I wasn't, usually I'm part of the process, and I'll have my little tricks, but it's hard with players who are coming up from junior because there's not a ton of video on them.
Yeah.
And sometimes the announcers get it wrong too.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, I was a hockey play-by-play guy for a long time for West Virginia University. I'm going to tell you a secret, Sam. I got a lot of names wrong because if you don't know, you just guess. Like I would get my team's names correct because I would ask the coach, who's this guy, who's that guy. I would ask the player, how do I say your name? But the opposing team, no idea. No idea. And you just go with it. There's players from, in these colleges, there's players from all over the place. So, but anyway, enough about names, Sam. That was a little bit of a tangent. What was the last time you were this excited about Devils hockey?
2012.
Is it like you weren't this excited in 2018?
Not really. Not really, actually.
We were in first place in December that year.
I was that's somewhat of a lie. Nico Heischer's NHL debut got me fired up.
It was pretty electric.
I was fired up on Jack Hughes' debut when the Devils were leading 4-0. But those were just little, glimpses of hope. But probably I haven't felt this good since 2012, the line brawl, where I knew that the Devils were
that was
be
good.
Okay. Yeah, the Madison Square Garden, Pete DeBoer versus John Tortorella.
Was that when they were yelling on the benches?
Yes.
Yeah,
and Doc Emmerich's
that was a great moment.
Doc Emmerich's like, we've got a lot of cameras, and we're going to use every single one of them.
I miss Doc. I'm not going to lie. You got to invite him on again.
I think he's really retired. I haven't been able to get
he's like, he found Bob McKenzie's island, and he's not coming back?
I think so. I mean, he probably has a couple obligations that he has to do, but I really think he's retired. I think he's sitting back like a fan, just like a number in the crowd.
Okay. Hey, listen, good for Doc. Doc of anybody, he deserves it. He's one of the good guys of the sport. I'm so glad we had him to ourselves for so long. But
yeah, I mean, honestly, he's got a farm, his wife. I mean, that's got to be a lot of long, when he's away. That's got to be really lonely for many years. You have to think about the travel. But now he's back home. And you know what? We got so many great memories and years with Doc Emmerich. But, hey, we got Chico Resch November 12th, American Whiskey, and Bruce Driver.
And you know what, Sam?
Friends of the podcast, by the way.
Yeah, both friends, big friends of the podcast.
Yeah.
You know what's even better than that, Sam?
They're like BFFs of the podcast.
For those who don't want to buy tickets to a Saturday night game, still come to American Whiskey. Because me and Sam didn't buy tickets. we're going to hang out at American Whiskey, and we're going to continue the party during the game. We're going to watch the Devils at American Whiskey.
Yeah.
Is that still your plan, Sam? Because that's my plan.
That is my plan. And most people don't know that when I do podcasts at American Whiskey, most times I have a ticket and I sacrifice going to the game for Devils After Dark and all the preparation. It's not easy sometimes. Sometimes I would go in for only 10 minutes just to say hello to people inside the arena and then come back out. Back in the day with Taj Lounge. Opening night, I was from start to finish. I got there at, I believe, 12:15 p.m. for a 7 o'clock game, setting up. Yeah, it's a lot of work, guys, and just a little behind-the-scenes stuff. And, again, I'm not like the Devils where I need to give myself a pat on the back. That's not what it's about. But it just tells a story that, you know, we don't just turn the button and everything just works. You know, we really try to, when we put these events to American Whiskey, we want you to come because something special's happening. And that's why we're there. You know, so that's the point I was trying to make. Along with, I shouldn't have said that right in front of our guest, that I spent 90 minutes on this phone system. Thank goodness it worked because it didn't work all night.
It was a worthwhile 90 minutes then, Sam, I guess, right?
Hey, you know what? You didn't have any echoes. You didn't have any feedback. Adam didn't notice, anything. So, you know what? We're good to go. That's how things work on this podcast. It's like,
thank goodness for small miracles, as they say.
Yeah, it's we usually fumble it, like in football, but we always have possession of the ball in the end of the day. So that's all that matters, right?
Yeah, that's all that matters. I will say this, Sam. It's been. Can I say something? One thing.
Sure.
Why are Devils fans still negative?
Oh, okay. You know
I don't
what?
Get
this
it.
is a great.
We're mad at Jack Hughes. We didn't play well enough against. We're too small now. We're getting beat up by Calgary. Big bad Calgary. They're a Daryl Sutter team. They beat everybody up. I don't like. Why do we have to find the negative narrative? I don't understand.
You know what? I don't even get it. And even Sunday. Not that I'm, again, like someone that, making about me, but on Sunday I decided to take a victory lap when the Devils were 9-1. 9-1, I figured, you know what, it's time for a victory lap. I think it was a well-deserved victory lap of going through my Twitter account on October 16th. That Lindy Ruff will figure it out, and he actually did. And I think credit needs to be due, not to me, but to Lindy Ruff, because going 0-2, almost 0-3, and you wrote this on Pucks and Pitchforks, how he's in 10 days, wow. And that is a statement, and I can't wait till the 1-year anniversary when I wrote that Lindy Ruff should be here next year, which is this season. I would love to revisit that article and just what went right and what went wrong. And obviously, and I want to know this, Nick, the coaches that came in this season, like when Lindy Ruff first came to New Jersey, was he told Nasreddine is going to be your assistant coach? And this is not a knock on Nasreddine. But was Lindy allowed to hire his own guys? Or did he just go with the flow? And next time around, was he part of that process? Because it took a while to name those assistant coaches during the offseason.
I think so. I think Josh Harris runs his teams like businesses. And you see this a lot. And I'm currently working in a corporate structure. and it's very defined how decisions are made.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's how the Devils define them. There are decision makers, and then there are managers. And I think Lindy Ruff is a manager. I think Lindy Ruff has as much decision-making power about his coaching staff that I want to say Martin Brodeur, but I feel like maybe he has more than that. But he doesn't have nearly as much as Tom Fitzgerald does.
Yeah.
I don't think he picked Nasruddin. I don't think he picked Recchi. Maybe he had a say in Recchi.
I think that had to do with the Tom Fitzgerald Pittsburgh connection.
There was a couple things there. He's also a legendary player, so he comes with the name value.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was weird that Rogalski got to keep his job as goaltender coach.
Yeah.
And if I'm Lindy Ruff, you got to be a confident son of a gun to hire Andrew Brunette if he's the sole decision maker of his coaching staff. You have to have – there's got to be steel in your cup, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because – and I ain't talking about a coffee cup.
Yep.
You got to have have to have a set on you. If you know you're on the hot seat and you hire a reigning Jack Adams Award nominee, like, I got to – if that's Lindy Ruff, I have newfound respect for him for that. I don't think it was Lindy Ruff, to be fair. But to be fair to him, he's making the best of this situation because the power play, sans last night, the power play didn't look great last night. But sans last night, power plays looked a lot better. The lines have been more consistent. He did change them last night. Wasn't a fan of that. Don't like when he changes it mid-period when you have a team that's rolling. If you haven't found a set that works, that's one thing. But these lines have worked, and he's winning in every type of way. And when you win in multiple different kinds of ways, that comes down to leadership. And I think that's the leadership of Nico Hischier as captain, and then in the leadership of Lindy Ruff. I never questioned Lindy Ruff's ability to lead. My whole worry with him was his day-to-day coaching ability. And my worry with him was his play style something that was going to win on a consistent basis in the NHL. I always knew he was a good leader. He's what is he? Well, he's the active leader in wins. And what is he? Is he third or fourth all time?
He's up there. I think he's fourth.
I think it's fourth.
If you think Scotty
he's fourth
Bowman,
all time in wins.
Scotty Bowman, is probably number one. Al Arbor, I think he may have surpassed.
Yeah, I think Al Arbor's too. Anyway, the point being, since he had Dominic Hasek, this might be the closest Lindy Ruff has been to having a team that you could look at and be like, wait, is this a cup contender? Those Dallas Stars teams were good. I don't consider them cup contenders.
Well, there were a couple Buffalo Sabres teams that was the 05-06 team with Drury.
Was that with like Heatley and Briere?
No, Heatley wasn't. I don't think Heatley was on there. Briere, Drury, Thomas Vanek.
Okay.
He was a rookie.
Why did I think Heatley?
Brian Miller. No, Denny Heatley went to Ottawa, didn't he?
He was in Ottawa. Oh, he was in Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking. I got Briere right. Anyway, yeah, there was one team that was a complete bullet train in Buffalo with those 3 players on it. I think you're right. 05, 06 was that year.
They were fast. I mean, they were the new NHL team. I mean, you coming out of a year-long lockout,
Yeah,
and his team was built for the new rules, essentially. I mean, the game changed. Take out the red line.
And his system was built for it, especially when people weren't used to that.
Yep.
And his system didn't work last year because the Devils under Ray Shero built a. The biggest problem is the Devils tried to build a defensive system. Let me. The Devils wanted players to play like Erik Karlsson is playing now. They brought in PK Subban thinking that he'd have a season like Karlsson has now. When his defense, if his defense drops off, he can make up for it with offense. The problem with Lindy Ruff's system is Lindy Ruff's system is prone to mistakes. And when you have Subban and Severson as your top 2 players who are high-risk, high-reward players, it doesn't bode well for you, right? So that's why they brought in Siegenthaler and Marino, because those are low-risk, not even low-risk, medium reward, really, is what they are. They will make the play that they think will avoid a goal more than the play that they think will score a goal. And, Adam and Vignan kind of went into that about how they're refusing expected goals on the defensive side, and they're stopping big chances on the defensive side as much as they're gaining big chances on the offensive side. And I think that's what you need in a Lindy Ruff system. You can't have these high-risk, high-reward defensemen and playing a speed game, because you're going to leave your goalies out to dry a lot. And we saw it last year. There was 1 million breakaways last year. And we're seeing players get a rush, right? But I would say it's a normal amount of breakaways against, right? It's just like no more or no less than any other team.
Yeah. Well, sorry, Nick. I was paying attention to something else.
No.
It
That's
happens. Okay. It happens as a producer.
My ADD goes off too. Listen, I'm still waiting. I look at my inbox every day for the Lindy Ruff redemption article from you, Sam. I'm patiently waiting for it.
It'll be one of the biggest articles in the history of pucksandpitchforks.com. You may have to wait at the 1-year anniversary. Now, Steve Engel, good friend of the podcast, Steve Engel, Fitzgerald hired Brunette. Now, look at it the other way around. You're thinking you're Andrew Brunette. The Jack Adams conversation. What you did in Florida. Now you're a free agent because that team, your former employer, doesn't want you. They're going a different direction. You could have gone to other places, but he came to the New Jersey Devils to work under Lindy Ruff.
And here's the thing, Sam. If the Devils make the playoffs, even if they aren't this bullet train that they are right now, if they make the playoffs, Andrew Brunette's getting a head coaching job. Whether that's Lindy Ruff kind of takes a step to the side and becomes, I still think Ruff, the plan for Ruff was never longer than a 5-year plan to be on the bench. And then they were going to make him, whether it's head of player development or something like that. Because they want to, again, the Devils build this like a business. They understand an asset. And Lindy Ruff was always an asset. And I think they want his player development skills around in perpetuity. But he's old. He's in his 60s.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me, Nick, to be quite honest. Now, remember, I choose my words wisely. I felt that this season only Lindy Ruff could coach this team. I did not give him a pass for the next season. I felt that the continuity of developing these players was more important than anything else this season because there were so many changes when Jack Hughes first came into the league with the pandemic, everything that had gone on, COVID outbreaks, Mac
and
Black
that's all
getting
fair.
injured, Bernier getting injured, everybody getting injured. And I felt that when you have somebody of Lindy Ruff's resume, he probably would be the best to handle it. Plus, what he did for Jack Hughes last season and the second half of the season, Nico Heischer started to blossom. And Heischer has really taken it to a next level. Jack Hughes, again, we haven't talked about him that much, but I'm not worried about him. You got to be very happy what Lindy has done, getting pretty much all four lines rolling at this point. And defensively, still improvements, but John Marino's got the green light to make home run passes when he feels like it because that didn't happen in Pittsburgh.
No.
As much.
No, he definitely has more freedom to do things, which, I mean, I think I said it last week. There's not a better trade in the NHL this year than that John Marino trade.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
And that's not a knock on Ty Smith.
Well,
maybe
the Kachuk trade is looking really, really mighty fine for Florida. Kachuk, oh man, Kachuk is probably the number one MVP candidate this year. The suspension isn't going to help him right now, but he's right up there. And Huberdeau hasn't looked great. I couldn't tell you how Uyghur looked, but I know Huberdeau missed the last game and he hasn't looked great so far this season. So that trade is looking phenomenal for Florida right now. But besides that, I'd put John Marino for Ty Smith in the third up against anybody, especially Ty Smith. I think he has 2 more years left on his contract. I think it's definitely multiple. But I think he has 2 or 3 more years, something like that. He's got a ton of years left. Thanks to Brian Burke. Appreciate you, my man. I'm going to go buy his book for shredding us John Marino.
Yeah, Marino's become a fan favorite on Devils After Dark for some odd reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You and Vinny. Or no, you and Scotty. Sorry.
Yeah. Actually, Vinny's going to be filling in for Scotty tomorrow on Devils After Dark. See, the boys, Vinny's got a wedding on Saturday, so he can't make the November 12th. So Scotty is going to be beaming in from his Beverly Hills Palatial Estates, doing Game Day Live and Devils After Dark virtually. Also, he will be, if we can get this up and running, because Scotty of SiriusXM Liquid Metal has all the DJing skills, he will be DJing virtually from his home in Beverly Hills to the bar at American Whiskey. We've never tried this before, but
Is he going to put on death metal on? Is that what's going to be
happening?
No.
Scotty knows that this is a hockey crowd, some AC/DC, some
Dropkick Murphys.
Yeah, or
Tell Scotty next time. Oh, he's not going to be on before then. I'll tell him because I'm going to be on. Wait, am I going to be on Game Day Live or am I just drinking with these people?
You'll be on Game Day Live.
Okay.
I've already had, because you know what? It's actually, I'm relieved that you're going to be there because we got Chico Resch and Bruce Driver, and somebody needs to produce. It's hard to produce. Look, you got your 2 idols sitting right next to you producing on live air in front of all these people at the bar. It's like chaos at the bar. at American Whiskey. Lots of people. So if I were you guys, I would get there early. I'll be there around 4 p.m. setting up. So if I'm setting up, just to let people know, and there will be a time where I can talk, but when I'm setting up, it's kind of like a quarterback at home, at their home stadium, and you're driving. You need to be quiet so I can snap the ball. That's all. I don't want a false start on this podcast. Making football references.
New York football gets enough of those.
Yeah.
All right, Sam. I think that's it. I think we hit everything.
Yeah, we hit everything.
I guess the only thing we only kind of touched on it in the interview is that Pilat is out for 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah, same with Blackwood. He's got to be out as long, you would think. His official timeline is 3 to 6. Okay.
I wrote that's expect him out till Christmas. That's what I'm saying. I think he'll come back around Christmas time. So it's probably closer to the 6-week timeline. That is closer to the 6-week timeline. But that's what I think they're gonna do, unless because there's only 2 back-to-backs between now and then.
Yeah.
And, don't be... Alex Shavancy, friend of the podcast, brought up that, I think his name was Magnus Hellberg, is on waivers. It wouldn't be crazy for them to claim him and then put him back on waivers on, when Mackenzie Blackwood comes back. I don't think Schmid is a long-term backup option. I'm still confused they didn't do Dawes. I was floored when they picked Schmid over Dawes to come up.
I'm not.
I'm still floored.
I'm not at all. I think Dawes, you know what? Look, when Marty Brodeur came into the NHL, his first NHL games, it was on an emergency basis. When Billington and Terreri went down with injury, it was him and Craig Erickson, right? So he played 8 games, I think, at most.
Was it even that many?
And then he spent the entire year in Utica the year after. Not even one NHL game. Just to get a full season in. And then
I know, but did anybody get hurt? Was there a reason to call him up?
What?
The next year.
That was the 93-94 season.
No. You said what year did he spend a whole year in Utica? Was that 92-93?
92-93.
So maybe there wasn't an injury that warranted a call-up. You know what I mean? Maybe they had Terreri and I forget who else was there.
The point is he spent the whole year at Utica. Why can't Nico Dawes do that? I think he spent
I just feel like he's the more NHL-ready goalie. That's
yeah,
me.
But you know what? It's Vanecek's team right now. You're gonna ride. You're gonna ride Vanecek. That's why you got Vanecek. You got a 1A and a 1B. 1A's hurt or 1B's hurt, whichever you want to. Let's say 1B's hurt because his last name is Blackwood for B.
Okay.
So you put 1V for Vanecek. And this is his team right now. You said it yourself. There's 2 back-to-back games by the time Mackenzie Blackwood comes in. Well, guess what? It's Vanny's team right now. He's got the crowd chanting his name, VTech, which was awesome last night. And, yeah. So, you have anything to plug? I'm going to hit the music right now.
Oh, yeah. pucksandpitchforks.com. Vinny wrote about Quinn Hughes. So, we can never get enough of Quinn Hughes talk. Jeremy Gold, he wrote about the fourth line and their importance to the team so far this year. I got a David Holiday piece to edit about last night's game, so that'll be up, within the next hour. And then, you know what, Sam? I wasn't gonna write tonight because I'm really tired. But
too.
I think I got the bug.
Oh.
So I'm gonna write the New Jersey Devils will break the franchise record in points this season.
What?
The only question is who? So we'll do a piece on that. I gotta say, Sam, real quick.
Cliffhanger. Go ahead.
Little worried about Utica. 3-4-0-1 to start the season. Not their best outing. It's early yet. They've been giving up a lot of goals. Well, they haven't scored a ton of goals. That's the problem. They have 21 goals in 8 games. Less than 3 goals a game. So I don't know what the answer is there. Maybe we'll have one of the Utica guys on.
Maybe
next week or the week after. Kind of let us know what's going on to start the season.
All right. Well, just remember, folks, November 12th, American Whiskey before the Devils take on the Arizona Coyotes. Bruce Driver, Chico Resch, Nick Villano, and I will be there. Till next time, let's go Devils.